Well, hello everyone. Big welcome to the Results Grassroots Conference Call for February. I feel like I say something like this every month, but I kind of don't know where January went. But I've also heard people say that January felt really long, so I'm not sure that both of those can be true at once, but there we go. So this evening, we're going to be discussing a topic which also has a pretty flexible timescale, which we'll come to later, I'm sure, is the run up to the next general election and what it means for our advocacy on international development. But more on that when I introduce our speaker, who is already with us. Welcome, Paul. So if I don't, this isn't anybody's first time on our conference calls, so I'm not going to say welcome to new people, but hello to everybody. And as I'll start with the usual housekeeping messages, so please keep yourself muted during the call, and anything that you want to raise, we'll try and deal with during the chat box, in the chat box rather. And you should be able to turn captions on and off using the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. If you can see them and you don't want them, you should be able to just turn them off. As always, we'll be recording the call for people who want to catch up afterwards. So, and oh yeah, just lastly, as our recent practice, we've started kind of, having the call open for an extra half an hour or so after the formal call is finished at 9. So we'll do that for those who want to stay, but it's absolutely not at all required. Obviously, it's purely just a social extra, as it were. Hello, Bentley. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'll have a few new people, I'm sure, join as we go through. So I'll kind of get going with my usual kind of roundup of what's been happening in the world of politics this last month that affects the work of Results on poverty reduction. One of the things I'm sure you'll have noticed was that a number of countries, including the UK, have recently suspended humanitarian aid to Gaza following allegations that a small number of its local aid workers were involved in Hamas's deadly attacks on the 7th of October. Of course, that's very worrying, and the UNWRA, which is the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, has been taking action concerning the accused employees. As some of you will remember, Results has been advocating for support for education in emergencies, which is different, obviously, from just direct humanitarian aid, but without a degree of stability, obviously, education is completely impossible to deliver safely. And we thought you might be interested to see a press release from Education Cannot Wait from December. And you'll remember that that's an organisation, and we advocated for increased funding for them last year. They're calling, not surprisingly, for an immediate ceasefire to allow, among other things, for that current total disruption of education in Gaza, as I'm sure you can imagine, to be halted and education programs restarted as soon as possible. So we'll put that in the chat box just in case you're interested in their perspective on the situation. Also on the subject of education, 24th of January, so just last week, week before, was the International Day of Education. And to mark the occasion, our Policy and Parliamentary Advocacy Officer for Education, Hannah, who I think has been on this call before, wrote a blog post on the important topic of privatisation in education provision and why it's increasingly causing problems for the delivery of quality education around the world, which is obviously a right that's guaranteed by states under human rights law. So Results, you may not know this, I don't think there's any reason why you would, but has joined a thing called the Privatisation in Education and Human Rights Consortium, which has signed up to a statement or has written a joint statement to confront these trends that undermine the potential of public education or education as a public good in many countries. You can also sign up as an individual if you'd like to. So again, we'll put a link to the blog from Hannah in the chat box. And in that blog, there's a link to the petition. So she explains really well why this is a problem. There's a number of reasons why it's a problem. And I can really recommend it as an overview of the topic and why it matters for poverty alleviation. So again, we'll just put that in the chat box now for you to pick up if you'd like to. Another serious issue that we've been alerted to in the last little while by Bond, in fact, the organisation, the umbrella organisation for international development agencies, is that official development assistance, or ODA, from the UK and other rich countries isn't keeping pace with the need in the world and is in fact been reducing. This might not come as news to many of you, but we've seen some figures. And as you know, for a long time now, we've been calling on the UK government, and that will include whoever's in power after the next election, to return our development spending to 0.7% of the UK's gross national income, or GNI, which, again, as some of you will know, is a level set internationally in the early 1970s. But we're actually seeing aid to the least developed countries, not just from the UK, but from all donors, falling at the same time that humanitarian aid to Ukraine and ODA spending in donor countries themselves, such as, for example, support to refugees, are kind of breaking all records. To make matters worse, increasing amounts of that development assistance is in the form of loans rather than grants. That's an upward trend that we're seeing, putting more and more countries at risk of having to pay debt interest that exceeds the amount they have available for things like health and education. This is something that probably quite a few of us have been campaigning on for a while, many of us campaigning back at the turn of the millennium on debt. And it's exceedingly concerning, in my view at least, that the world does not seem to have learned any of those lessons yet about the problems of unsustainable debt levels. So this is something that we all have to watch out for in the coming years. And if you want to read a bit more about this, I'm going to put a link, or Aurora will put a link, I think. Thank you. In the chat box to a recent article from Bond with an excellent analysis of those trends in ODA flows to the least developed countries. And I hope some of you will find that useful. Next, I'd like to just quickly mention that coming up fast is World TB Day on March the 24th. This is an international chance to mark the world's progress, or lack of it, fighting TB, which, as we all know, is the world's deadliest infectious disease, not counting COVID. It's an important moment for results as advocacy, and we often ask you to help raise the profile of this neglected disease on World TB Day. This year, we're going to be doing something a bit more specific, and that's because we've got an opportunity this year to talk about TB in relation to an increasingly important global health risk, which is antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. Again, those of you who've been around for a while will have heard us talk about that, probably not for a few years now that we've had an opportunity internationally to raise this. I think it was something like 2017, 2018 that we last focused in on this in a big way. So for those of you who are not familiar, antimicrobial resistance is when the microbes that cause the disease evolve to become resistant to the drugs used to treat them. And for example, many of you will have heard about the decreasing effectiveness of antibiotics, which is an example of this. This year, the UN will be holding a high-level meeting on AMR at its General Assembly in September, and we'll want countries to agree to strong commitments relating to TB when addressing AMR. And the reason for that is that drug-resistant TB is an increasing problem right around the world. It's an increasingly large chunk of the AMR problem, and more research and development is urgently needed to develop effective treatments for TB. And again, as some of you are very familiar with, the current best treatments for drug-resistant TB are long and arduous, with very severe and sometimes permanent side effects. So we really need politicians to understand this issue in the run-up to the high-level meeting. And Results' Senior Policy Officer on TB, Sahara Ramzan, who, again, some of you have met on this call, will be writing a report on the topic, and we hope to invite parliamentarians to a launch event on the 20th of March, but we'll say more about that next month and how you can get involved. Lastly, before I hand over, I would like to just thank everyone who took part in last month's discussion about Results' strategic direction with our Chief Executive Officer, Kitty Airy. There's really good in-depth conversation about how we can increasingly influence the systems and structures in the world that keep countries and people in poverty, without this sounding kind of too daunting for people who want to just take a specific action, a detailed campaign and action on health or education now. So if you missed it, we've recorded the session and we'll put that link as well in the chat box. So that's it for me for a minute. I'm going to hand over to Aurora before I introduce our guest speaker, who will talk about what we've been hearing about your activities around the UK over the last month. So over to you, Aurora, to introduce that.
Thanks, Naveed. Before I do you want to answer Ricky's question? He asked in the chat. He said the recent government white paper suggests that aid will be targeted to lower income countries where the highest need is, but is that not what's happening?
Great question. Yes, we did hear that announcement, and that did that come in the white paper? Wherever it came, it's welcome, and we need to kind of watch that. So what we shared in the chat just now was trends. So it's OECD data. So you can take it that it's sort of backward looking, but it is the trend. So yeah, absolutely, we'll be looking to donor governments to reverse that trend. And if that statement is the beginning of that, then that's very welcome news. But we have to watch that. But yeah, thank you for the question. No additional data on that yet. We'll just need to keep watching what actually happens.
Yes,
Laura.
I can come in. Thanks, Naveed. So as everyone knows me, but Paul, maybe you don't. So I'm Aurora. I'm the campaigns coordinator with Results, and I have the biggest privilege because I get to hear about everyone's activities around the country and their campaigning and all of the inspiring things they do. But we've been thinking about mixing it up a little bit, this section, and rather than me telling you what you did, I thought maybe I'll start by opening it up and just hearing from you guys what you've been up to in the country, anything that you want to share, anything that you've been doing with your group or individually. We would love to hear it from yourselves.
Okay. I don't mind chipping in to begin with, Aurora, if that's okay.
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you, Ricky. What's been going on in Scotland? Tell us.
We decided we'd have a meeting because we had a new member this year, or in December, I can't remember exactly, but so Bolanle joined us, and also OJ had joined the group last summer. So I think there were some group members who hadn't met those two, and it was really, they're quite interesting people, both of them from Nigeria. So I thought it'd be really worth having just a new round of introductions, and also to kind of build on last month's action. You know, what kind of campaigning do we really want to do this year? So easier said than done. We didn't get everybody in the meeting because of availability, and we wanted to get on with it and have the meeting. So there are 4 of us, but we've put together just a kind of rather scruffy little kind of set of notes as to what ideas came out of that meeting, which you've helped us, Aurora, to put onto Google Docs, and it's now up there. So I can say to Bentley, because Bentley, you're on the call, so apologies you didn't make the meeting, but you can have your say now on Google Docs. You add your own up, yours and Wendy's ideas about what kind of campaigning we want to do this year. So that debate's open for probably another few days, and then we'll
have a look at that, Ricky.
Good man. Good man. I know you will. That'd be fantastic. Cool. So yeah, that's us, and hopefully we'll get some plans that we've all agreed to, and we'll be able to put them into practice in the coming months.
Amazing. It's good to see you were inspired by what we producers like the January action, like a kickoff of the year, and had that meeting to look ahead at your own planning. It's really great. Any other group updates, anything like that? Maybe from Paul?
Yeah. Do you want to say it? Go on. Well, Aurora, we normally have our planning meeting at this time of year, and we decided that we would have one. Normally when we're going to have a meeting, we send out dates and we agree a date, and that is successful. This time we didn't, and we just said we'll have the meeting on Saturday because Princess, for example, works, and that would be easier. but it hasn't worked because so many people either are away or unable to make that date. So we definitely haven't cancelled it yet, which is this Saturday, but we're just wondering whether to put it back a week or two when we can get more people there to join the meeting. So that's where we are at the moment. But it will happen.
It will.
It will. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it's going to be really good once you get people together to really
Yeah.
put your ideas into place for the year. I know I thought last year was great, but I know you guys felt that you would have liked to do more, but there were circumstances that didn't allow it. So whatever you want to do this year, we'll be here to support. And we actually have put a plan for like visiting groups more this year. And yeah, we would love to come down to Poole as well if you do for a meeting or for any type of event that you do. So that'd be super cool. Just let us know.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Aurora.
okay.
Thank you.
And then I also know that the online group has been up to some stuff.
I'm trying to persuade Kermit to say something. Yeah, we've had a meeting and lots of things flying around and planning for the year, including writing letters and replies to letters and things like that. We talked a lot about nutrition at the last meeting, and this idea that Kitty floated about, well, that was said about bringing in the UK, and so we did some bit of research about nutrition in the UK and what a problem undernutrition is, and just wondering where that's going to go. But it's really good to be able to get together with other people. Kemi, you come in as well.
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, so for me, it's actually quite exciting at the moment to be a part of the group. I was actually meant to do some work last week and this week, but I've been kind of having health challenges. But anyway, the main thing to really report, as Jill just said, is that we're going to focus on replying the letter from the FCDO. You know, they had some few highlights on topics we could concentrate on, such as girls education, obviously, and you know, and like a way forward in terms of replying that. So we're going to work on that reply, I think, next week. And also from my end, I think Aurora just mentioned that she's quite happy to come down. So I'm hoping to start a group in Derby. So I'm kind of just having some challenges at the moment in kind of contacting Aurora and Naveed to get that going, to kind of galvanize and mobilize university students to support what Result UK does as grassroots campaigners. So that's still very much definitely going to happen, but it's just taking a little bit longer than I thought it would to get that going. But yes, I'm looking forward to seeing Aurora and Naveed come down to my uni. I'm an alumni now, but I have access to that, and they're looking forward to having us because I've spoken to the senior lecturer and the program leader for the education department, which is very important to me. So, and they know about us already, and they're looking forward to having us. It's just me getting my side organized, but that's going to happen before the end of this month. I was hoping to do that this week, but yeah. So there's the things happening in the background. So I will reach out to Aurora and Naveed, and we can get that ball rolling.
That's excellent, Kemi. Yeah, I'm really excited about that prospect, and I know you're very passionate about it. I'm sure you will make it happen, and don't be too hard on yourself about having to do it this time or that time. Like it'll happen when the time is right, and I know you have other commitments as well, but we will definitely come down and help out with that. I'm really excited about it. New group, it's always good.
Me too.
So thank you. Really exciting, and I'm sure the online group will be backing you up and supporting you along the way until you have launched it. All right.
Thank you.
Of course. I will just say a couple more things, except if Jay, if you want to say anything about Cheshire. Oh, sorry, you're muted, Jay.
No, we haven't been, we haven't actually got together to look at the planning this year. So that's what sort of we are planning to do in the next two weeks.
That's really great news. All right, well, we'll look forward to hearing what comes out of that. Thanks, Jay. So I just have a couple more things to tell you about, for example, that the London group met up a couple of times in January and also going to meet up a couple of times this year. They're very keen at the moment on introducing new people. They had a meeting for International Day of Education and signed that letter that Naveed shared before. They also seem to have a new venue, like a permanent venue for future meetings, which is really good because they were meeting in pubs. So that's all really positive. And then I also wanted to highlight from the actions that you did on education, for example, the online group sent a joint letter. We had a few replies before Christmas from the FCDO. We then had also, you remember it was on education and kind of trying to get that into the agenda of the Global Refugee Forum and COP, which happened in December. So we then got a letter, Ricky got a letter reply, his MP did, by hand-signed and like kind of written on and signed, signal posted by Andrew Mitchell, which was really interesting. And yeah, and it was different from the other ones. It was personalized, it seemed, and also because it was after the meetings, after COP. So in there, I want to share with you that Andrew Mitchell called education an enabler of progress on all other SDGs, which is really great to see, and also that connection with the SDGs as you made. He also it's also really good to see how much he included foundational learning into this, which is something that Results, you know, as you all know, works on a lot. So it's great to see that is very much on his radar and very important to him. And it was much more prominent than in previous letters, as mentioned, foundational learning. And Jill, you'll be pleased to know that he also highlighted that the UK was the first donor to sign onto the call to action for disability inclusive education, which is something that members of the Send My Friend to School Coalition have been advocating for in the past year. So yeah, just wanted to share those outcomes of that very encouraging letter. And do keep getting those back to me if you get any replies. It's always good to see. And we can pass it on to our colleagues and the other teams so they have a bit more insight. And yeah, I will pass it back on to Naveed for presenting our speaker tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Aurora, and thanks everybody for sharing what you're up to and what you're thinking. It's always really amazing to hear about that. So it's now time to introduce our topic of conversation and guest speaker for this evening. And as I mentioned at the top of the call, we're asking you to consider contacting your local prospective parliamentary candidates in the run-up to the general election that must happen at some point in the next year. And hopefully you'll received a link to our action materials in an email in the last week. They look a bit different. We've now got them on our new look website, but we still do basically a very similar kind of action materials. To help us think about how this relates to our work as advocates on international development, we're extremely lucky to be joined by Paul Abernethy, who's been waiting with us since the very beginning of the call. Welcome, Paul. So Paul is the Government Relations and Public Affairs Manager at BOND, which, as I said, is the umbrella body for international development organisations in the UK. Paul will be known to some of you already, I suspect. Yeah, a massive thank you for being with us. Paul's a very old friend of Results, and I think we've probably been working together back since, I don't know, 2015 or before, around the Sustainable Development Goals. Paul's also worked for many years to support the all-party parliamentary group on the Sustainable Development Goals, for which BOND provides the secretariat. So, Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's as I said before, it's been quite a long day just because I've got a 9-month-old at the moment, and he is like he's started to walk and crawl and stuff, but it also means that he doesn't like sleeping, and so it's been a rough couple of days. But I actually popped off camera then, apologies, because I heard him crying, and then the dogs started shouting, started barking as well. So it was all go. But anyway, I'm really excited to join you all, because I think I've been on this call a couple of times over the years now, and Naveed's right. I've been working with results for 10 years now. So 2014 was when I first joined the international development sector, and that was for an organisation called Global Citizen, and I work predominantly on polio. So it's really good to see Jill, who was one of our stalwarts of the campaign back in the day, and so yeah, I've been involved. Global Citizen worked hand in hand with results, and so yeah, it's really good to be back here, and I've done a couple of these now, and I always find it quite energetic, and you guys always know your stuff as well. So I kind of feel like I'm preaching to the choir a lot of the time, but people ask me to come and share my expertise, but you guys know far more than me most of the time. But yeah, no, I'm happy to come and talk about the next 9 months, 10 months, whatever, whenever the general election is, and yeah, happy to take questions and give you a bit of a flavour as to what the whole development sector are doing, and more importantly, what you guys can do as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, yeah, particularly for joining us when you've got obviously a lot going on at the moment. We're very grateful. So as you know, there's people on the call who've been around a very long time, very familiar with campaign on global poverty, but we also have some newer people as well. And so we're gonna do the usual thing we do on the call of kick in with a few pre-arranged questions before opening it up to sort of general whatever people want to ask. But before that, we're going to do what we always do, and it's been a little while since we've heard from you. So if you could just remind us about how you got involved in, you said you got involved in 2014, but what was it that made you join the international development sector, get involved in these kind of issues, and also maybe then how did you get involved with Bond?
Yeah, so it's quite funny because a lot of my peers all have done like degrees in international development, or I've like been involved in the sector for a long time, and I often joke that the only reason I'm in this position is because I'm good at shouting at people, and I think that's it's a partly true and partly joke, but partly true as well. And I've been an activist and a campaigner pretty much my whole professional career. So I started off in student unions, both in elected positions, but then as staff members. So and then I decided that we were doing a lot of really good campaigns, and I was head of campaigns at University of Essex Students' Union, and we were doing some really important stuff, but I felt like there are bigger missions out there, and I felt like actually I've learned all these skills, and I've got this experience, and I felt I could do. I don't want to say more because that's not probably right. Just do something different, and so I made the jump to international development. So yeah, I worked for Global Citizen for close to 5 years, working on many campaigns on education and polio and other health initiatives and trade and stuff like that. And then Bond is I've always worked in membership organisations, so the Bond role came up, and it was just too exciting to ignore. So I moved to Bond, which will be 6 years in April now. And my role there is government relations manager, but ultimately I'm responsible for the political advocacy of the organisation. So I put together its political strategy, and because of the nature of our organisation and because of the role we play in the sector, often that means trying to pull the whole of the international development sector together to work collaboratively on big things like general elections or leadership contests or big policy moments like the loss of 0.7. So yeah, so that's kind of my role now, and I really love the ability to bring people together and for everyone to play to their strengths and to be able to utilize their own unique organizational perspectives and strengths, whilst also making sure that we're singing from the same hymn sheet. So it's something that's really exciting, and this is why calls like this are really critical, because actually for all the planning we can do in our offices in London, actually, unless we've got people on the ground doing like talking in communities and talking to people in positions of power, then it doesn't really mean anything. So yeah, so it's kind of I'm predominantly public affairs right now in my role, but actually I come from a campaigning background, and I've done a lot of stuff, grassroots campaigning as well, in both my professional and personal life. So yeah, it's really good to be here with you all. It's nice to talk to you all, and I'm really excited actually to learn from you about what you're doing and how we can work together.
Thank you, Paul. And I would really, stress how important it is to have Bond help pull us all together as a sector, so we can all, speak with one voice whenever that's possible. So look, we better get into our questions, because that's what we're really here for. So I think the very first question is from the online group. Is someone from the online group going to own up to having? Maybe it's someone who's not joined the call. Oh dear.
Jill, I'm really sorry. You look like that hasn't come across. I have sent it in your Google group.
I can ask it.
Yes.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Have you got it,
Okay.
Kemi? Go for
Yes,
it.
I do. Okay. Thank you, Paul, for that introduction. So our first question is, why is it important to talk about international development issues in the run-up to a general election?
Yeah, again, I'll give you my perspective, but I think again you'll know a lot of this anyway. But this is my third election now at Bond. So setting up the strategy and stuff, and the last two were surprise elections. Like, we didn't know that they were coming until all of a sudden we were given 6 weeks notice. Well, they say 25 working days, which works out to about 6 weeks notice. And so the fact that we've got to this one and when it's meant to be set actually has been quite unique, both in planning but opportunity as well. And I think it's, for the first time in a generation, we've got a real chance of a change of government. It's an actual change election. And whilst things can happen really quickly in politics, it's going to take something monumental to stop Labour from winning. Now, there are debates as to how big that win will be. Like, it could be catastrophic for the Conservative Party. It might not be. It's really hard to determine what an actual swing looks like. For Labour to win the election, they have to have the greatest swing ever in any election we've ever had. And the polls say it's not impossible. But there are other factors at play, like the polls aren't everything. Like, you still got resource and money to think about, and so you could have Labour could potentially have a majority of 200. You might have a majority of 50. It's really hard to determine what that looks like, but there is a real opportunity for a change of government and a change of party. And it's actually really exciting for us as well, because although you can't take Labour for granted, absolutely you can't take Labour's support for granted, actually the Labour Party historically are a lot more naturally in tune with the issues of international development. And so the Conservative Party historically have always been sceptical about international development, and their commitment has always been perhaps not as strong as, say, the opposition parties. And so there's a real chance with a change of government. There's a real opportunity to be quite progressive in our asks and quite ambitious in our asks. And now, and the second question we can get to in a minute, which talks about the reality of the situation, but there is a real opportunity for a new government to come in on day one, but reorganize priorities, which will make a hell of a difference. And so and Naveed was kindly spoke about the Bond OECD DAC stats. Like, there is a worrying trend happening, but that they're political decisions. It's not necessarily about new money, it's political decisions. So there is an opportunity for us to engage with a brand new government in a party which is a bit more amenable to our asks, who can do stuff on day one that won't cost the earth, that can make a real difference. So I'm really excited about that. Also, I'm away from, if you like, regardless of who's in power or not, there is going to be a change in Parliament. Like, we're going to have a brand new Parliament, and so even if you took out the whole like Labour could win 200 seats, like the amount of Conservative MPs who are stepping down, the amount of Labour MPs who are stepping down at the next general election means that we're going to have a whole bunch of new MPs in there who have never really been in the political limelight, who've never really spoken to grassroots supporters about issues. And then, but if you add the fact that actually Labour could win potentially 200 seats, we could be like in a situation where we have 200 plus brand new MPs, which is really exciting for me, because these are going to be majority opposition parties who, again, like I said, they're amenable to our asks. It's a real opportunity for us to build a support of Parliament that outlasts any sort of government. If you think back to the 0.7 vote, we lost that because we didn't have enough support in Parliament. We came close. And the fact that we as a sector were able to get a former Prime Minister to vote against her own party is incredible. We just narrowly missed out on that. Like, it was incredible to see. It was a shame we lost it, but we were always fighting the horizon. We're always fighting against the tide there anyway. But like now, if you think about it, 200 plus MPs who could potentially be amenable to our ask, it's really exciting. And regardless of whether we've got Labours or Lib Dems or even Conservatives in, like, there's a real good opportunity to build a supportive Parliament there that outlasts party politics and actually outlasts government. So it's something I'm really excited about, and it's something that certainly you guys can be at the forefront of doing. And yeah, that's kind of where we are, the situation. So regardless of who wins, there's some real big opportunities for us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. It's really important, I think, to set out that kind of big picture about where Parliament's going. And I think also, I mean, in fairness to, you know, the current government, whilst there's been a very difficult few years for international development issues, the current Development Secretary, Andrew Mitchell, was one of those people who rebelled. So
he led it. He led the rebellion.
Very, very important to recognise that. But we have a big change situation now, as Paul set out. So I'm going to hand over to the Pool group, I think, for the next question.
Yeah, that's right. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Now, Paul, nice to see you. Given the cuts to the UK's international development programmes in the last few years, how important is this election likely to be, as all the political parties are financially constrained? They're all in trouble, aren't they? So, you know, what's going to be the best approach?
So Labour have the number one priority for Labour right now, and we're making the assumption that they're going to win the election. The number one priority for Labour right now is to demonstrate that they are financially and economically competent. They are trying to pitch themselves as the antidote to the cost of the turmoil we've seen certainly in the last 5 years. And because of this, they've adopted what's called like a Ming vase strategy, whereas they are walking very finely with this Ming vase and they do not want to drop it. So they are taking baby steps to make sure that they don't want to lose the election. They don't want to drop this vase. And so that makes it really hard for us to start asking. I did say there's a chance for us to be ambitious, but we also have to be realistic. We can't come in and just say, right, we want to return to 0.7 on day one. We have been saying that to them. But realistically, are we going to get that? Like this, they want to demonstrate to the public, the general public, who actually, if we're completely honest with ourselves, on a whole, are skeptical of international development. So like, when it's not a popular subject, if you look at the issues that this general elections are going to be fought on, like there's some really helpful polling which I'll try and dig out and I'm happy to share afterwards, but it demonstrates that actually foreign policy is the second to least popular topic for general election. It's going to be fought on the economy, it's going to be fought on the NHS and cost of living crisis. Like that's what it's going to be about. And so yeah, so it's going to be really hard for us to all of a sudden come in and say we want all this new money for international development, because it's not going to happen. That said, you look at the OECD stats, you look at investment in the BII, which is the investment arm of development for the UK. If you look at there are certain political decisions that have been made by this government, and fair play to Andrew Mitchell, he's definitely been fighting from the belly of the beast in this to try and reverse some of this. But the fact that actually the last couple of Conservative governments have prioritised investment over human development. They've prioritised, they've gone to big global moments and not given anything at all. Like these are all political choices, and so conversations I'm having with the Labour Party and with Lisa Nandy right now is about decisions on day one that you can make, political decisions that don't cost any money but have a massive difference. Reprioritise human development. You've got a 0.5 budget there, which is still quite significant, one of the most significant certainly in G7 countries. There are ways that you can spend that which will still have an impact. Look at things like debt relief, for instance. We're having conversations about Labour about what they can do to try and forgive debt relief. There are a number of decisions that they can do. So whilst money is constrained, the ambition and the drivers of this next government are really important. And so it's really critical that actually we start to build that support in Parliament for like a human development approach to development. That was said development a lot there, but you know what I mean? It's like there are opportunities for us to really shape the next government's priorities that don't cost money, that will make a difference. And so, yeah, it's really hard for us to try and square that circle, because we are used to, as a sector, we're used to going to government and saying, you must give X amount for this, you must, and we can still do that, but actually help them trying to shape the vision of what the next government want to do and make political decisions on day one that don't cost an arm or a leg are going to be really important.
Thanks,
just
Paul.
putting Labour to one side. Andrew Mitchell's done an incredible job with the white paper. It's not perfect, and Bond have done some analysis, and I'm happy again. I'll dig it out and I'll share it afterwards. Naveed, I can send you some stuff if it's not.
Thank you. Yeah.
Public. But like, it's not perfect, but it's really good start, and it's like really good to see the white paper offering a menu of things that the next government can do. And so, like, the Conservatives they're not in the. I do like, this is just the Chatham House. Please don't say Bond say this. Go online and say Bond say this. But there are some concerns about like if the Conservative Party lose and they lose big, and there's going to be some sort of soul searching afterwards. And there is a concern that actually what comes after this Conservative Party, do they take a big lurch to the right, where all of a sudden they're going to be like, oh, actually we've got Suella Braverman in charge, for instance, who wants to scrap aid entirely. That might not happen, and I'm not saying that's her policy position, but there is a worry about what happens next with the Conservative Party. But the fact that Andrew Mitchell's put this white paper out there, and you know for a fact Andrew Mitchell I think he is just about going to hold his seat. It means like hopefully he will be able to try and keep the party on the straight and narrow. But the fact that this white paper exists, the fact that David Cameron's backed it, the fact that actually it's been out there front and centre, gives us some hope for the future, regardless of what happens. And so the Lib Dems are always really strong on international development, and so are the SNP. It's one of the issues that actually binds a lot of the parties together. And now there is a concern, so I'm going off on one a little bit, so apologies, but there is also some concern that as we get closer to the election, international development can be used as a political football, and certainly Bond's priority is to try and keep development out of the main political debate as we get closer to the election. That doesn't mean we shouldn't talk to candidates, far from it, but actually it does mean that we maybe don't try to put stuff in the media. Maybe we try and keep it out of the general discourse. So
thanks, Paul. I'm going to stop you there because I know that we're going to sort of segue into the next question, and I do want to make a bit of time for sort of general questions. So I think if we hand over to Scotland for the last question, the last kind of set question, and then we'll open it up.
Right, I think that's going to be me that's going to be asking that. Thanks very much, Paul. And we do know in Scotland that Bond does not cover Scotland, but the general election, I think, is something which affects us. And I'm sure you work with the Scottish International Development Agency, so that that your views will probably reflect the Scottish ones too. But anyway, the question that I want to ask is, what kinds of questions are likely to be useful when we do, because you've already indicated possibly the questions are not for major hustings, but could you tell us what questions you would recommend?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have specific questions, but what I can give you is a sense of what might be important to candidates and what might be important to new MPs. So it's really important to take them on a journey. I think it's quite right to say that a lot of candidates will not have a clue about what beyond what they've maybe perhaps read in the media, which often isn't great for us. Actually don't really understand international development. Some will, but actually a lot of them won't. And it's really important to try and take them on a journey to demonstrate the impact that the UK already has and what it can do as well. I always remember when Justine Greening 10 plus years ago, not Justine Greening was appointed International Development Secretary at then DFID, and she came from transport. She didn't have a clue about development, and one of the first things that was on her desk was Global Citizen, and I think Results actually. There was a petition that was put together on polio eradication, and it was one of the first things on her desk. And because of that, because it was brought to attention, she was taken then on a journey which then led to really good government support for polio eradication. And so actually, if you can get in there early with candidates, if you can get in there early with MPs and demonstrate that actually there's a lot of their constituents who have an interest in international development and foreign policy issues, then that can be really powerful. And I think you have to remember, any MP who certainly who's elected and any candidate, it's all about domestic issues, this general election. And it always will be, quite rightly so. With MPs' main focus and priority is always domestic. It's always their constituents, but there are a number of ways you can play that. So you can we always find the solidarity message works really well. So actually, if you can talk about, there are some big global things that binds us all, regardless. Health, like everyone gets sick. That's a really good way to talk about what's happening elsewhere. Like you can look at the cost of living crisis. This isn't just a UK crisis, it's a global crisis. The fuel crisis as well. There are many ways to talk about domestic issues and linking it to international development. And so but getting in early and talking, demonstrating to them that actually a lot of the constituents really care about this. And especially the fact that we're going to have potentially a whole bunch of new Labour MPs who, like I said, their party positions are a lot stronger in development. I think we're really pushing on an open door with a lot of this as well. So it's really exciting to be able to get in early and then link as well as you can the local issues to big global issues as well, and demonstrate that actually people are watching, who are watching you. Like, you're a new MP, you've got a real chance to make a real difference. Like, as
absolutely,
we've got our eye on you.
I think that message of helping to start the journey, particularly with so many new MPs, is a really important one. So I think we're gonna definitely, need to latch onto that. So thank you for saying that. There is much more we could say if we had more time about the kinds of questions, the kind of approaches you could adopt. I know some people in the network went to some training organised by the Aid Alliance and the One campaign just before Christmas, but we're also running some training of our own. So I just hope you don't mind by taking a second out to put a plug out for that. It feels like the right time. So this is going to be on the 13th of March, and it's going to be about campaigning during elections. So really a chance to build on what you're hearing today from Paul and get into the weeds of the kinds of questions that might or might not work on the doorstep or in a meeting or however you choose to do it. So there is that opportunity as well if we don't get the chance to get into the detail this evening, which I'm afraid we're probably not.
Also to highlight that it'll be kind of a new thing that we're trying out. We're going to host it with Hope for the Future, who's an organization that does very, very similar work to Results, but more on climate issues. So they're very knowledgeable also on helping people establish those relationships, not just with MPs, but also councillors. So it'll be kind of a fresh new addition to what we can offer in kind of training.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that collaboration. Thanks, Aurora. So we just wanted to put that plug in. It felt like the right time. We'll put the details in the chat box so you can sign up for that. And let's open up in the normal way to questions. So there's the Zoom chat box. There's just opening up your microphones. And you can also, if you prefer, text me as usual. So that's on 07906 662 571. So I'm just going to put that in the, I don't know if it helps to put that in the chat. It might make no technical sense whatsoever, but I've always done it. Anyway, there it is, 07906 662 571. So over to anybody.
Naveed, I noticed a question that Jill put in the chat. I can answer
Yeah,
that
let's start with
really
that
quickly.
one. So let me just read it out because not everybody probably can see the chat. So back in the day, polls of the general public showed the majority were in favour of ODA, official development assistance. Has this changed now? And have we any recent polls showing public support? I think there is definitely data, isn't there?
Yes, so I don't have it off the top of my head, the exact figures, but I know I think it was around just under 50% who are generally supportive of international development issues. Ironically, when the government cut a load of funding to development programs a couple of years ago because of the cuts to 0.7, we saw about a 10% jump in support because all of a sudden there were these news stories which Bond helped get out there through our media work. Those news stories about like schools closing, and like we really told the human, and as soon as people found out the human element of dropping from 0.7, actually you saw a jump of about 10%. I think that's fizzled out a little bit, but the best place to go for this source is there's an organization called the Development Engagement Labs, who have been doing a study for, I think it's about 10 plus years now, on ODA support, and not just in the UK, but like the US and Australia and parts of Europe, Germany, I think as well. So yeah, Development Engagement Labs, Dell. If you give them a Google, they've got some public data on it as well. And again, I can try and dig something out if helpful, but they're pretty much, we work hand in hand with them and they tell us the latest trends. And so it's not great. But because of the cost of living crisis as well, regardless of how many people support development issues, like there are real pressures on the doorstep now. So generally, like I say, there was some YouGov polling about 6 months ago about what issues are most important to and I think that's actually ongoing on the YouGov website, but you look at it and foreign policy is always right towards the bottom. So regardless of whether people support it or not, like certainly in the run to general election, our issues aren't popular, just because people are really feeling the pinch right now.
Thank you, Paul. I've just put a link to their website in the chat. It's actually slightly confusingly called developmentcompass.org. But they're called the Development Engagement Lab. But the link there to developmentcompass.org is to all of their data, which is an enormous amount of data. If I had a bit more time, I could find the specific latest bit of data, which they release every 6 months on the sort of latest figures. As Paul said, the public support has been going down, maybe not as much as you'd think over the last decade, but there have certainly been peaks and troughs. So if you're struggling with that data, give me a shout and I can probably pick out some specific graphs and things that might be helpful. We can follow that one up. So thank you, Jill. It's a really important question. Anyone else got a question? Well, gosh, we haven't got a lot of time, but maybe chance for one or maybe two very quick questions and answers.
I'll hand up.
Go for it.
Okay. We're on then, Ricky.
Oh, is it me?
I think so.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to talk, Karen.
No, I know. I'm just in control of the computer.
This is a slightly unfair question, Paul, and I apologise if it's beyond your scope. But we're in Results Scotland, and obviously we're expecting, we're not going to have a Conservative crash in Scotland because we haven't got the Conservatives in, really. We're much more likely to go from SNP to Labour. So picking up on what you were saying about the danger of international development becoming a political football, and I think you were advising, not necessarily bring it up in hustings and things like that. I'm wondering whether the same rule applies up here, because if we do have hustings, it'd be great to go along and talk about international development. That might be safer to do in Scotland than England. Can you comment on that, or do I need to take the question somewhere else?
No, I absolutely can. And I think as well, I do think, so when I was saying that, so Bond strategy is to keep it out of the media. And so we're talking about like back and throws between Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, for instance, because that's where it matters. But actually local hustings, like even in the UK, like right now there is officially there is consensus on international development. So as the hustings start to happen, even in the UK, I don't think there's any issue with raising it on a local level. I think when I say we're advising caution on the national level, where actually we don't want to get in a ding dong between the political parties, but ultimately that's also kind of out of our control. Like we can only control certain bits of it. If the Conservatives want to make this a political wedge issue, there's nothing we can do to stop it. All we can do is respond. And so yeah, so I think hustings, regardless of Scotland or England or Wales, like absolutely you can. I think there's no harm in bringing it up. I think it demonstrates to the candidates that there is a constituency of support for international development, regardless of what they're hearing on the doorstep. There is people interested in this. And yeah, the SNP and Labour actually, by and large, are supportive of the same things. And so there is never really massive difference in their manifestos, apart from SNP say 0.7 should come back immediately and that there should be a separate international development department. But actually, regardless, like the vision stuff and the drivers behind international development and the kind of moral case for international development are largely the same between Labour and SNP. So no, I would say you don't have to necessarily exercise caution on talking about development issues. We just have to be careful about keeping it from. We have to keep it out the Daily Mail, basically, which again we can only control to a certain point of view.
Let's not mess around. That's what we're talking about. Thank you, Paul. It's almost 9 o'clock, so I'm going to have to finish the conversation. I would say, something that Paul mentioned earlier about so many new people being likely to end up in Parliament. So many of these candidates are likely to be in a position of power. They'll be able to take part in debates and get involved in these issues. So they need to hear about them for the first time. So it's kind of more how you do it rather than, setting up, that sort of political football type debate, but actually helping them start on that journey that Paul mentioned of understanding that there's constituents out there who care and maybe knowing something about the issues. They won't know half of the stuff that you know. And we have in our materials put a few talking points of the kinds of things you could raise that Results has been working on. They'll look really familiar to those of you who've been around for a little while on things like TB, nutrition, education, those kinds of topics. We're not specifically focusing in on one issue because it's just really important to engage the MPs in whatever works in that constituency and whatever works for them and whatever works for you. So do have a look at those materials. I think we are going to put a little link in the chat, and just in case you haven't seen them, but they should be in your inbox. Give us a shout if they haven't, because that means something's gone wrong. So as I said, there's that training event as well on the 13th, which will give us a chance to sort of really pick up this conversation in terms of what to say and how with candidates. And I would like to, just before we end, also mention that I think I mentioned it at the last call. We were talking about potentially getting Sam Daly-Harris, the founder of Results, to talk to us about his latest edition of his new book. And just this afternoon, I had a little email chat with him, and provisionally we're going to get him to come and talk to us on Thursday, the 21st of March. That is to be confirmed. So it's not the usual Tuesday, it's an additional meeting. We've had to try and sort of space out what's going on because we've also got that training in March and then the April conference call. But we'll email you with the details and the link. So but hold the date for now. I'm really excited that we'll get to hear from him about what's his view, all these years on, about the reality today of what he calls reclaiming our democracy. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope that'll be really useful for people on this network. So we have to finish the call now, I'm afraid. The next one, as usual, the first Tuesday of March. That's Tuesday the 5th of March. It's going to be quite busy March for us. the 5th, then the 13th, then the 21st. But I hope we'll see some of you on some of those calls. So for now, if you're not staying for the informal chat, please do check out those February action materials. And I really hope you'll be able to work out a way of taking action with your local political candidates. And as always, a big thank you for whatever you can do. So obviously we don't know when the election is going to be called. There's different people saying it's going to be earlier in the year or later in the year. But again, focusing on Paul's message, get in there early, get there with the candidates whilst you have that opportunity. Thank you so much, as always, for all that you're doing to support Results' advocacy, and good luck with any of those meetings. So if you're not staying, enjoy the rest of your evenings.